So tonight we're going to do another fairy tale as a companion to Multiverse of Geekdom's reading of Jack and the Beanstalk. Here is another one by Jeanne Steig, her version of Jack and the Beanstalk, presented this evening as a test run for Profile Vision. Jack and the Beanstalk. Long ago, in a faraway country, there lived a poor widow and her only son, Jack. Jack was lazy, it's true, and a bit foolish, but he was a good-hearted boy and he loved his mother. The two of them had only their small cottage, with its dab of a garden, and an old cow called Blizzard, because she was as white as the milk she gave, except for a few spots to make her more interesting. Each morning they milked their cow, and each afternoon they carried the milk to the market. It was all the income they had, and even so, they lived on scraps and snippets. One day, when Jack's mother went out to milk Blizzard, there wasn't a drop to be got from her. "Oh, Jack, I'm afraid the poor old cow's gone dry," she said. And they both stood sadly and gazed at Blizzard, who stared back sadly at them. "It can't be helped," said the mother. "She must be sold." "Sell Blizzard?" said Jack. "We can't feed ourselves and we can't feed the cow," said his mother. "Of course you might get a job." "I doubt it," said Jack. "Well then, you must take her to market and get as much as you can." "I will," said Jack. "I feel lucky today," and he took the cow by her halter and started off down the road. He hadn't gone far, just around two bends and a rather long curve, when he met a peculiar-looking old fellow. "Good morning, Jack," said he, with an ear-to-ear smile. "Good morning, indeed," said Jack, amazed to hear his name on the lips of this strange fellow. "And tell me, Jack, where might you be going with that amazingly white spotted cow on the end of a string?" "I'm taking her off to market to sell," replied Jack, "and I know I'm going to do well because I feel lucky today." "And you look lucky, too," said the man. "Here's a test for you. What's the difference between a bean and a billy goat?" "Beans," replied Jack, "are much more agreeable." "Oh, you're a shrewd boy. You'll go far," cried the man. "Look here. Could these be the beans you had in mind?" And he reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of weird-looking beans. "I don't know," said Jack. "Of course you don't," said the man. "You never saw anything like these beans in your life, and I'll tell you what, since this is your lucky day, I believe I'll have to trade you my beans for that cow." "Do I look stupid?" asked Jack. "Not you, nor your cow neither," the man replied. "And when I tell you the truth about these beans, you'll know you've managed to get the best of me. These remarkable beans, if planted tonight, will grow up to the sky by morning, clear on up to the top of the sky." "No fooling," said Jack. "I'd never have known it." "You wheedled it out of me," said the man, frowning. "The cow for the beans," cried Jack. "Agreed." "You drive a hard bargain," the man said, "but if you're dissatisfied, I'll give you your dry old cow back, and you can keep the beans too." So saying, he placed the beans in Jack's hand and was off down the road, singing, "I've got a cow, and her name is Blizz. She's a mighty fine cow, that's what she is." And Blizzard seemed to dance a little as they went along together. Jack ran home to show his mother how shrewd a bargain he'd made. "I've sold her!" he cried as he came through the door without wiping his feet. "Good boy," said his mother. "And back so soon. How much did you get for her, Jack?" "I'll give you a guess," he said. 5 bits of silver? 10? 15? Your boy's no fool," said he. "What's silver compared to a handful of guaranteed magic beans?" "Beans!" cried his mother. "You've traded my Blizzard for beans. I'll bean you, you dolt, you ninny, you knucklehead. Here's what I think of your beans, you jackanapes!" And she flung them out the window and burst into tears. There was nothing by way of supper for Jack, and he went upstairs to bed, feeling hungry and angry and sorry and sad. To make matters worse, he knew his poor mother was feeling the same. Jack woke up early, knowing that something was not quite right, for the room was too dark. The window was shaded by an enormous beanstalk sprung from the beans his mother had thrown away. It was twisted and thick, and it reached right up to the sky. "So there!" said Jack. He flung open the window, jumped onto the beanstalk, threw back his head, and began to climb. He climbed and he climbed, and he climbed some more, and he kept climbing till his head poked up through the highest clouds, and he stopped, and he stepped off into the sky. Before him, a long road stretched out straight, and he walked along it a long, long time, till at last he came to a house so huge that he felt like a cricket before it. A gigantic woman stood at the door. "Good morning, madam," said Jack, whose mother had taught him manners. "I wonder if I could trouble you for a bit of breakfast. I had nothing to eat at all last night or this morning either, and I've had a good long climb."
"The trouble will be yours," said she, "for my husband is bigger than I am, and his favourite breakfast is little boys, fried, crisp, and served with hot pepper sauce. Just hop along quick, he'll be home and hungry before you know it, and so much the worse for you."
"I haven't even the strength to crawl," said Jack, "without just a bite. My rumbling belly, I'll bet you can hear it."
"Well, come along in," said the giant's wife, "and take your chances."
She wasn't so awful after all, and she sat Jack down to a plateful of bread and cheese, with a glass of milk besides. "This is more like it," said Jack. He was just about to ask for seconds when the whole house began to rattle and shake, and so did he.
"There's my husband, I know his step," the giantess said. "Now what shall we do about you?"
"I don't know," said Jack.
"Come quick," she whispered, "and jump in the oven."
Jack lost no time in doing that, and a good thing, for the door flew open, and in stumbled the giant, roaring.
"Wife, wife, what do I smell? Tell me no tales, for my nose knows well. Fee, fi, fo, fum! I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread."
And he pounded his tremendous mud-covered feet on the floor.
"Rubbish," said his wife. "Your nose is having some fun with you. What it smells is rhinoceros ragout, which I'll serve up as soon as you've combed your hair and washed your hands, and not 1 minute before." While Jack watched in horror through a chink in the oven, the giant combed his hair, washed his enormous hands, and sat down to devour the vast bowl of steaming meat that the giantess put before him. Though it seemed to Jack he would go on eating forever, at last he was done. He announced his satisfaction with a belch, like the crack of doom. Then he called out, "My bowl is empty. I've eaten the lot. Now let me see how much treasure I've got." His wife brought him 3 great sacks of gold from a chest in the corner, and went off to take her nap. The giant began counting, but it wasn't long till his eyes closed and he fell asleep, with his head on the table, snoring enough to wake the devil. Jack eased open the oven door and popped out ever so quickly. "I'll just take a lick of dessert," he said to himself, and snatched up a sack of gold. Then he flew out the door and headed straight for the beanstalk. When he reached it, he threw down the sack and scrambled after it, right into his mother's garden. And there she stood, poor woman, gazing up at the beanstalk and wondering where her foolish boy had gone, and where the sack had come from. When Jack showed her the gold, she was overjoyed, and had to admit that the beans were magical after all. "This will last us forever," she said. "And a half," said Jack. Indeed, they did live well for a year, but then all the gold was spent. "Now what shall we do?" asked Jack's mother. "I'm afraid you will have to get yourself a job." "Never mind," replied Jack. "There's more where that came from. I'll just have another bit of a climb." His mother begged him not to go, but it was no use. Up he went to the top of the beanstalk, and he skipped along till he came once more to the giant's house. There on the front steps stood the giantess. "Good morning, madam," said Jack politely. "You see before you a dreadfully hungry boy." "What of it?"
said she. "I had the idea you might be so kind as to lend me a speck of breakfast," said he.
"Go away," she said. "The only thing a boy will get here is eaten, except, that is, for the one last year, who looked rather like you, but skinnier. He escaped with a sack of gold, which made my husband extremely hard to live with, I'll tell you." "My sympathy, ma'am," said Jack.
And the breakfast needn't be anything fancy.
You're a sweet talker, said the woman. I'll let you come in, but I can't promise you won't be dessert for my husband.
We'll just see who gets the dessert, said Jack to himself. The giantess dished up a savory plateful of bread and cheese, which Jack ate with gusto. He was settling down for a nice little chat with the giantess, but then the giant's footsteps thundered. The walls shook, and Jack dived into the oven. The giant began his feeing and fying and foeing and fumming again, and again his wife assured him that there was no English blood to be smelled.
It's only the buffalo bisque in the stove, said she.
So the giant combed his hair, washed his hands, and sat down to stuff himself. Then he licked the bowl, belching mightily, and roared out,
Wife, wife, get up off your legs. Bring me the hen that lays golden eggs. The gentleman calls for his golden eggs. Tra-la, grumbled the giantess.
Nevertheless, she went and fetched a little brown hen, and set it on the table in front of her husband, and stalked off to her nap.
Lay,
commanded the giant, and the little hen cackled and laid a golden egg.
Again,
he said, and she did it again, and a third time too. The giant soon wearied of the game, and put down his head and fell asleep. Out jumped Jack from the oven, scooped up the hen, and made for the door. But the startled hen let out a great cackle, and the giant awoke. Then Jack lit out at a run down the road, with the giant raging and shouting,
Where in the sky is my little brown hen? Someone has been here thieving again.
In fact, the hen was tucked snugly under Jack's arm, as he sneaked down the beanstalk and home to his mother's house, where he found her peering up as if she were hoping to catch a glimpse of her son in the sky.
Look, Ma,
cried he, setting the hen on the kitchen table. Lay, he ordered. Now lay again. And soon the table was covered with golden eggs. Mother and son had an easy life, selling the eggs the little brown hen laid, but one on weekdays and 2 on Saturdays. But by and by Jack became restless, for the giant's house had got into his head. And seemed to be calling him. Well, I'll just have one more visit upstairs, he said to himself. And early one morning, before his mother awoke, he went off to the beanstalk again. He was afraid to try his luck with the giantess a third time, so he sneaked around the corner of the house and hid himself in a great copper pot that stood outside. Before very long, the giant's footsteps drew near and made the pot ring so loudly that Jack was nearly deafened. The giant went into his house and bellowed,
Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. I smell it loud, and I smell it clear. I'm telling you, wife, there's a young lad here. Well, if there is, it's surely that sweet-talking scamp who stole your gold and your little brown hen. I'll bet he's weaseled his way back into my oven. They banged their heads together, trying to beat each other to the oven door, but of course there was nothing inside but a few old bones, and the giantess cried, Oh, fie on your fee-fi-fo-fum, I'm sick of it! What you smell is boy, all right, but it's last night's leftover boy that I've just warmed up for breakfast. Go wash your hands and comb your hair, and you'd better give your big stupid nose a good blow while you're at it. So the giant sat down and ate his meal, and picked his teeth with the bones, while the giantess sat on the huge front step, right next to the pot with Jack inside, and muttered, I yearn for a quiet life. Soon enough her husband belched and shouted, Wife, wife, you'd better look sharp. I'm in the mood for my golden harp.
And I will finish the story in the next video.